It's Friday. It's not 5 o'clock. It is not crackerjack, but it is the last day of our week with the wonderful Chris Brindley on our Rebuilding Business series this week. Really fantastic to have you, Chris. Thank you so much for being with us all week. So much that we've covered, from rugby through to how do we develop teams, through to finding the motivation. You've just got such a wealth of experience. Obviously, having been the best boss in Britain and led the happiest workforce in Britain, so much that we've learned from you this week. But I'm really keen to speak to you today on Rebuilding Business, just to find out a little bit more about what the future holds. Now, I know that we all talk about in leadership that actually you've got to take that time out to work on the business, not in the business. But it's crucial as we take this time at the moment to think about what are the emerging trends, what are the opportunities that will help us to future-proof our business and give us a competitive edge. Discuss is my answer to that. What are your thoughts on how do we create that future-proof opportunity?
So my process, philosophy, approach, Lily, is called the Three Revolutions. And I first saw a guy called Jack Black, and he's not the actor, it's another Jack Black, talk about the Three Revolutions in 1996. And I wrote those Three Revolutions down. And at the start of every meeting, when I'm choosing to work on the business, not in the business, these are the three headings to write down. And let's perhaps explore them in the next few minutes. The first revolution is the technology revolution. It is getting faster. We've now got artificial intelligence. The fact that we're having this conversation on Zoom just shows that even in the last few months, the technology revolution has come along. The iPhone is only 13 years old, and already the smartphone, the iPhone, is dominating people's lives across the globe. So technology is the first revolution. The second revolution is the consumer revolution, because ultimately it's a very, very, very different consumer environment from the one I grew up in. I grew up where shops closed half day on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and they weren't allowed to open Sundays. And the thought of buying something on Christmas Day using a smartphone was just the thought of science fiction. Yeah. And the third revolution is the revolution that we're currently experiencing, and that's the world order revolution. And the world order, at a really local level, changes when you get a new neighbour or you get a new boss. It changes at a macro level, when actually you get a new president of the USA, or you go through Brexit, or as we've all experienced, the change in world order has been COVID-19 in 2020, and that's what 2020 will be remembered for. So those three revolutions of technology, consumer, and world order are the things that I always look at when I'm working on the business, not just in it.
I'm just going to throw in a curveball here, because on the one hand, technology is amazing, although I think there are so many people that have got Zoom fatigue because they've spent 6 hours sitting here, and rather than traveling to and from meetings, they're actually literally meeting and don't have time to sort of power down, regroup and action some of the things they've agreed to. The other critical thing, I think I read a piece of research last week that said that most people under the age of 30 touch their mobile phone up to 2,000 times a day.
Wow, gosh.
How much of an impact do you think that's having on people's health, their ability to think clearly, to take time, to plan, to organise, and to actually live fruitful and meaningful, balanced lives? How much of an impact do you think that's having?
Technology can be an enabler, it can be a curse. And I always say, Lily, in any situation, a strength overplayed becomes your weakness. So confidence, if it's overplayed, becomes arrogance. But likewise, technology, if overplayed, becomes a real weakness. If you take it to its ultimate level, and I won't be around to see it, I'll be in a box under the ground. Ultimately, we will change our shape as human beings. Our digits will change how they operate. And sadly, people will live lonelier lives because they communicate and socialise through technology alone. So I'm a great believer in getting the balance right. So I've been really sort of clinical with technology, in particular Zoom. If it's lacking in complexity or it's low in sensitivity, I'll happily have a Zoom call. if there's a level of complexity or sensitivity, I want to get around the table. I want to be in the room. I want to look at people's non-verbal communication. I want people to put post-it notes all over the wall with wonderful ideas. And in terms of health, you know, this pandemic has had an impact without a shadow of a doubt, and people need help from each other. But this latest lockdown is a different lockdown because it's dark nights and dark mornings. So I'm encouraging people to go out and get their fresh air and their sunlight during the day and not work through Zoom back to back. Back-to-back meetings were a curse before technology, and people shouldn't have them. People should need some quality recovery time between meetings. So I think technology is good at the right time, in the right place for the right reason. It's absolutely awful if we become addicted to it like any other addiction. So please, please, please do not spend your life on technology.
Because actually we do use it, and I'm absolutely with you in terms of using it well. It's been fantastic. One of the things I have loved, and that's been the lack of traffic on the road. It's been amazing on rush hour to be able to get from here into Manchester in 40 minutes rather than 2 hours. But we've seen some other trends, haven't we, in terms of innovation that companies have really been driving. What else have you seen that's been useful, that's been positive?
Again, I'll just repeat what I said earlier about meetings. I can't foresee the day where everybody will commute to a city centre 5 days a week. So I'm hoping that more parents will get to drop more kids off and pick more kids up at school. I see that. Zoom has been, for me, I was a Zoom person in 2017. And at the start of March, there was 10 million Zoom users globally. By the end of May this year, there were 400 million Zoom users globally. So some of the benefits of technology, it can create capacity if used well. It enables really simple things. Like, you know, I used to be the managing director of 2 banks, and I had more branches in one of my regions than the whole bank now has, because people can access their bank account all the time. People can shop all the time. It doesn't need to be when the traditional opening hours are of the high street. So we just got to get the balance right. So again, for non-complex, non-sensitive stuff that I know I want, I'll purchase online, but I still love walking around a garden centre, smiling at people and just exploring and coming up with ideas of plants I might want to buy.
Oh, we are people of a certain age. But actually, I think that's a critical thing as well. The other thing I love, I haven't gone to online shopping with the supermarket. I know all of the girls in the supermarket that I use. I've been shopping there for 14 years. We always have a laugh and a bit of banter, and people are so relational, aren't they? Yeah. We don't want to be numbers on a spreadsheet. We want that sort of trust and that relationship, and to feel like we're more than just a customer. How is it that we do that? That we, whilst we're on this online, in this online world, you know, and we can order Christmas presents on Christmas Eve and still get them the following day. How do we make sure as business leaders that we still build that relationship?
And that is a really, really great question, because it is about building credits in the bank. Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about relationship being like bank accounts. And actually, he talks about having a credit strategy where we keep putting credits in, and credits are doing things well. Credits are remembering some of the small things. So what technology has enabled me to do is record everybody's birthday on my smartphone. And actually, I make sure that I get reminders, and I let people know that I know it's their birthday, and I send them greetings. And if it's a special event, I'll order something online to be delivered in the last 6 months because I've not been able to go personally. So it's all about how do I put credits in the relationship, and how do I minimize the debits? So I think organizations that remember people's birthdays, understand the important things in life, make life easier for them. And I think it can be done with colleagues, employees, whatever you want to call them, as well, which is how do you put credits in the relationship? How do you build trust? And trust is doing a job well done. And Hertzberg talks about motivating factors, and that's giving people something they weren't expecting that actually makes them feel good. And one great example of that I've seen is Admiral Insurance, because they, without being asked, have rebated a sum of money to all of their policyholders. They didn't make people apply. They just said, you're not expecting this. I'm giving you some of your money back because you've not been driving. And I think that's wonderful, because I look at some banks that have packaged accounts where the offer, Lily, is based on travel abroad, whether that's free travel insurance or, you know, lounges and currency deals. Quite frankly, no one's been able to use that to any great extent. I've not seen one of those banks refund any of that money back to the customer. That's the difference. Doing something that people aren't expecting, knowing you value who they are and the business they do with you. Do that regularly. I think you'll have a relationship for life.
Oh, now I could start a whole conversation now. I'm working with a corporate events company that I was supposed to take my PA to celebrate 5 years of her being in the business. I was taking her to the West End, and we couldn't go to the West End. We couldn't go to the restaurant. I was also supposed to take my son to the Grand Prix through them, and they've just said, sorry, we're not interested in talking to you until these things are reopened. They've been really quite negative. I won't use their name. The thing I love about you, Chris, every time I speak to you, you've got some really very solid, not just great business models, great business leaders, great business thought leaders that you refer back to you, but you've also got this fantastic practical experience and this continuous quest for knowledge. So I just wanted to ask you, how do you prepare yourself for the future? What are you listening to? What are you reading? Who is it that particularly keeps you up to date with what's happening and what's the potential for the future?
Lily, again, great question. I'm obsessed with the future because that's where I'm going to spend my time. I learn from the past and I live in the present, and it's about getting that balance right. But actually, I'm a great fan of what are known as futurists. I haven't got the ability to spend all day, every day, thinking about the future. But there's some great futurists about. There's one called the bald futurist, which obviously I have an emotional connection with because we share hairstyles. Guy called there's another one that I've looked at all the podcasts and I've checked in with many of his webinars, just like yours, Lily, and that's Graham Codrington. And there's a local one in Manchester called Tom Cheesewright. They just look at the future. That's what they do. And why would I try and spend all my time when I can look at them? I do read quality newspapers. I do listen to what politicians say, because ultimately what they say might come policy. And I'm an avid reader. I look at people who have qualities that I admire, that I might want to either be better at or even just grow and adapt. So I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts. When I do my daily walk, there's a podcast, and it's not music. I listen to some music for 10 or 15 minutes to get my endorphins going. But ultimately, I listen to people who I want to be like and who I want to learn from, and I do that. And that means I choose how I use my time really carefully. So I can tell you what Graham Codrington's thinking at the moment. Sadly, I can't tell you who's topical on Love Island, because I've never watched it and I never will.
I don't know that there is a Love Island this year, but no, it's not my thing. I watch a lot of comedy. I love the way that people make connections. So I do love Mock the Week. I really enjoy Would I Lie to You? Again, that's igniting the dopamine. But the other thing that I've started to take stock of, because I am an avid reader, and I would just kind of skim through and go, what are the critical lessons of that? And how can I apply that to business or situations that I'm working at the moment? I've taken to slow reading. And what I mean by slow reading is really digesting a chapter, and then at the end of every chapter going, so what? Yeah. What does this mean for my clients? Who will this help? Or how will this even help my business? We're 20 years in business this year coming. And I think that's one of the great things I love also about walking, isn't it? How do we make sure that we don't get so engaged with the dashing to the next thing and the next thing, that we don't forget to soak stuff up in the here and now?
Oh, absolutely. And every time you listen or read, I think what you do there, Lily, is brilliant, which is, so what does it mean? What have I learned? And how can I share the learning with somebody else? So if you ever borrowed a book off me, you would find it would be highlighted in lots of different pages and with lots of scribbles on it, on the page and on the spare page at the back with lots of action points. And ultimately I go through theirs and share with others. So you're absolutely right. It's not there just for entertainment. There should be some learning from it. And, you know, I'm not saying I don't watch any television. I watch documentaries. I watch a lot of sport, obviously. But I'm always looking for the lessons, not just the entertainment. And I think that's probably a good way of being prepared for the future.
Brilliant. Now, Chris, just as we wrap up for the week, and it's just been a fascinating week, really insightful and wonderful to talk to you. Prediction for next year's World Cup Rugby League then? Who's winning?
Well, I've got two hats, and I've got to be true to both. As the chair of the Rugby League World Cup 2021, I will be absolutely independent and say I want the best team to win, but I also want it to be the best ever World Cup. I'm also the senior non-executive director for the Rugby Football League, who are responsible for England Rugby League. So I would like the three tournaments, the men's to be won by England, the women's to be won by England, and the Rugby League Wheelchair World Cup to be won by England. England haven't won the men's in almost 50 years. So I think being played in the cool north, the final's going to be at Old Trafford for the men and women on the same day. The wheelchair the night before in Liverpool. Two brilliant cities. So I'm looking for England to lift all three cups as the Rugby Football League director, and it for to be the most engaging, inclusive tournament in any sport in history as the chair of the Rugby League World Cup 2021. And I'll have to take you to a game because we've got some great games down the road at Warrington.
Oh, I love to go. Yeah, and I love to see that stadium packed to the rafters. Now, I just think it's going to be an amazing time. Brilliant that we're just on the cusp of this. Everybody getting vaccinated. So here's to an incredibly successful World Cup. And thank you for a wonderful week. It's been brilliant to spend time with you.
Lily, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you and share with your listeners and your viewers some of the great work you're doing as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Brilliant to see you. Take care. Good luck.
Cheers. All the best.
Cheers.